and welcome to Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Maokbe Ogun Yusuf. It's exactly a week today when news broke of the killing of 3 of the students taken from the Greenfield University in Kaduna State, northwest Nigeria. Since then, 2 more of the students have been murdered in cold blood. And this week, a funeral ceremony, which was well attended, was organized for one of the late students. Now, while some relatives were getting painful closures to their circumstances, a video surfaced online of about 20 students who had earlier been taken from the Federal School of Forestry Mechanization, Afaka, in the same state. In it, the students who looked like they had been through so much took turns to plead for their safe rescue. As we speak, there's further news that some students have been taken from a school in Plateau State, north-central Nigeria. Now, news of student abductions or abductions of any kind are no longer strange today, but for those who are affected, they know the strain. What's a little more befuddling is the seeming helplessness of state actors who one should go to for help. On Hard Copy tonight, I speak with one who's been through the trauma of trying to secure the release of a loved one held in the dark den of kidnappers. Fisayo is a multiple award-winning investigative journalist who heads the Foundation for Investigative Journalism and has documented his experience securing the release of his bosom friend who was taken by these dark entrepreneurs. Fisayo, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you so much, Markwe.
Well, first of all, I'll ask you, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. First thing I want to say on this program is my condolences to everyone grieving in this country at the moment, grieving from the disappearance of their loved ones, the deaths of their loved ones from disappearances, and I pray we all get over this phase as quickly as possible as a country. I am good, but my friend, for instance, who was abducted, is still trying to be good 6 months after.
Well, thankfully, you were able to secure the release of your friend. Eventually, you were able to get him out of the den of kidnappers. But your experience was one that, it was a little hard to read. I mean, when I was reading through your experience, I was in my mind putting myself in your shoes. You took us through it all, just how it was trying to secure his release and the disappointment you felt at the, I don't know, is it unwillingness of the state or is it the helplessness of the state, to help? But what struck me most? What struck me the most, and I'll let you give a brief summary for the benefit of our viewers, so they too can understand what it is I'm talking about. But what struck me the most was that you were trying to point out the irony of the situation when you received the news of the NSAS protesters being shot at in Lekki and where you were at that point in time. The fact that the security agents whom you needed there and then to help secure your friend were nowhere to be found, but wherewith it would seem protesters who were asking for an end to police brutality. I don't know how your relationship has been with security agents since that time, but first and foremost, tell us how you got yourself into the situation of trying to release your friend.
Yes, first thing I want to say is I don't want to take credit for the release of my friend. So many people were supportive. There were people who my friend runs an NGO in Ibadan. It's not the biggest NGO in the world. It's about working for the people rather than filling your pocket. So we didn't know. We're not sure it was abduction. The police in Ekiti called and said the people in Ibadan should come to Ekiti. They found this car, there were gunshots. And then I spoke with the employee of One Life who went, and I asked her some questions. I thought this has to be abduction. And I called the wife. I said, look, forget what it is. Your husband is alive. That's the most important thing. We didn't find splashes of blood on the vehicle. That means he's alive. Then I went to, but I told her, any call from an unknown number that comes in, make sure you answer and record that conversation. So the next thing, I left Lagos, went to Ibadan. And I was with her, She was just going to drop her kid somewhere, 10 minutes journey. I almost felt, oh, go and come back. But then I said, no chances, let's go together. And as we were packing, we got the call. And it was Shola on the phone. And this guy said, they picked Shola and his colleague, they said they wanted 100 million. And look, from the very first minute, they were cursing. Say, see, if you don't bring my 100 million, your brother, he go die. she go die by the special grace of God. That's how they were talking to us. Putting so much fear into us, beating him as they were talking to us. The wife started crying, and then everyone started looking for money. 2 days into the saga, they called us, and the wife was quite apprehensive. I wanted her to at least know that her husband was still alive. I put the phone on speaker. These guys told us, they fired the bullet into the air, as we would eventually find out, but then we didn't know. They told us they had shot Shola in the leg. The wife threw herself aground, the aged father, the mother-in-law, and then the news started spreading to so many people. You see, and that's why when someone like Sheikh Gumi says that we have to accommodate bandits, I ask myself, does he even know what he's saying? Because bandits are worse than armed robbers. An armed robber strikes the moment he wants to, takes your money, does whatever, and leaves. The trauma is short-lived. No matter how long it lasts, it's short-lived compared to abduction. While your loved one is being held, you are traumatized, and everybody connected to him, in this case, everyone was traumatized.
As you're even documenting, as you're saying it again, I'm trying to put myself through, through that particular situation, and I'm just trying to imagine what it was that you must have gone through. I mean, I think that, every time the country gets to see those visuals, and even those who are not connected to them in any way, perhaps even people watching internationally, they put themselves in the shoes of those people who have been through that trauma. It's even more destabilizing because they're still not out. They're there. And we've had this repetitive abductions, happening since the Chibok girls, and trying to imagine what it is that maybe it seemed so far away then in Borno, but it was brought home by the protests that came as a result of that. The question is, you said something about the police. Yes. What was the response of security agencies when you went to report what had happened?
They had conversations with us. They were quite open to meet with us, indicating yes. They advised us to continue negotiating. That's the extent. There was a SAS officer that told us he was heading somewhere, and then they called him back to say, look, this case is priority, and we were meeting from time. I mean, to be fair on them, whenever we wanted to meet with them, we had access to meetings with them. That's where it ended. There is not one cogent security help that we got. We hired a private detective, and we paid him really well, expensive.
You had to hire a private detective?
Yes.
So those are available now?
Of course. From the south, flew in into the southwest, and we met up in Ekiti. We tracked where our friend, where Shola Fagurusi was being held.
So you people had to do that work yourself?
We did. The most painful thing is that we knew where they were held. Whenever they switched locations, we knew. And we were sharing information with them. We knew the number. In fact, at some point they told us the voice that was speaking to us sounded familiar. Maybe someone somewhere that was maybe in one of the security agencies and had left. Where they had their suspicions. So we knew. There was this day when we got, because we paid them the first ransom after exactly 1 week. They released Shola's colleague, and then held on to just a driver, a taxi driver, whom we begged to help us drop the ransom. And then they said Shola's employee is the only one should come back with Shola's ransom. And then they became harder and tougher after collecting the first ransom, and we're also getting frustrated. So a day came when we said, look, let's even go to that vicinity. And then we drove. I drove myself. The private security and his 2 staff with me makes 4, and then Shola's friend and Shola's employee. So 6 of us, all of us private citizens. We drove to within 4 minutes. We saw the forest where the captives were, but from a certain footpath, we knew that if we crossed, there was no guarantee that we would return. So we asked questions. We saw a bar around that place. We wanted to know if there were guys, speaking some kind of language that would come there to drink. And they also had their own suspicions. In fact, we saw the DPO of the police station in that area. But guess what? No SAS official was willing to come with us. No official from NCDC none from, sorry, I said
That's
NCDC,
NSCDC.
NSCDC, sorry, my apologies, NSCDC, none from the police. I spoke with the Ekiti State Commissioner of Police myself. I spoke with the commandant of Amotekun myself. I am aware that someone, the chief of staff to the Gambari, is that chief of staff or
To the president?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, that's Professor Gambari.
Yes. I mean, it got to him, he was aware. Several people spoke with the governor on our behalf. We spoke to commissioners in Ekiti. And then the worry is, if we had that kind of access and we got no single help, what is the fate of the common man?
So how did you feel? I mean, how do you document your helplessness, so to speak? Because first and foremost, the duty of state is to provide the security and welfare of citizens. The primary thing is security. At that point where you had, you're talking to the police, you had access to them, you had access to the governor, you had access to even the chief of staff of the president, and still nothing was happening. How did you feel at that point?
Well, to be very honest, I wasn't surprised. I'm an investigative journalist. I've done stuff. I've seen government react to situations. And I know that oftentimes things are just there for the gallery.
So you were not really expecting help?
I wasn't expecting help. But every time I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm not just going to make up. Yes, I expect you to act in a certain way. But I give you the opportunity to prove me wrong. And in this case, unfortunately, they were unable to. Because we still informed them. When I got the commissioner's number, I called him, I texted him, even though I wasn't really... As Shola's abduction was going on, 2 staff of the Federal Teaching Hospital, Ido-Ekiti, were abducted. They were coming from the wedding of a colleague. The same guys picked them up. And the staff went to they wanted to see the CP. They waited for 2, 3, 4 hours, and they got angry that, look, this guy is not even giving us attention. They went back to the hospital and said we were going to shut it down. It was after that that the CMD called the CP. And he said, okay, let them. And then they went, and then he listened to them. But guess what? Eventually, the staff contributed the ransom. 2 million naira each was what they paid to get those 2 guys out.
So eventually, you all had to pay ransom.
We all had to pay ransom. We paid our ransom twice. For whatever reason. And the annoying part, the annoying thing is that we knew these guys. We knew every time they were moving, we knew. So the pattern was always to move in the morning. And that's why if you study the pattern of kidnappings, they very rarely happen in the morning. Their mentality is that overnight, someone may have been tracking us. So when they wake up, they want to switch locations. We found out that oftentimes they switch locations in the morning. And we knew. We would see them, on our map, moving like this. And then the security agents kept saying, we didn't want to attack them because of the victims with them. There was no strategy. There was no strategy to say, okay, we've studied that over the last 1 week, they've moved in a certain direction. We expect that in the next few days, they want to move in the opposite direction. Can we go and wait for them there? If we can't strike them, when they are in their comfort zone and they are ready, we've studied their pattern for a week, for 2 weeks. Is there a best time now to strike? Is there a disguise for us to use? So when the lead guy, the one who was always talking to us, the lead kidnapper, whenever he left the camp to maybe go to town to buy food or whatever, we knew. And they couldn't even say, okay, should we just try to? And then we knew the exact place he was going in town. We had the address.
Technology was not exactly the problem.
It was not exactly the problem. And that's why I often say that for most of the problems we have in this country, the number one solution is the willpower. As long as the political willpower is not there, restructure this country 10 times, create 10 anti-corruption agencies, change the police, kill SARS, as long as the political willpower is not there, you're not going to get anywhere, regardless of technology or whatever.
Let's take a break at this point. We'll, take on the issue of paying a ransom versus negotiation and the attendant effect of that, the fact that this feeds into a cycle, so to speak. And Fisayo's take on it when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Hard Copy coming to you from our studios in Abuja. We're speaking with Fisayo, who is a multiple award-winning investigative journalist and also heads the Foundation for Investigative Journalism. And we're talking about his experience securing the release of his friend who was kidnapped by kidnappers. Fisayo, I don't know if you have seen the responses. I mean, of course, I'm sure you must have seen them by state actors. We've seen what has happened in Zamfara State, where the governor has tried to compensate or to rehabilitate kidnappers and bandits. We saw the calls by Sheikh Gumi, whom you made reference to earlier, that these people have also been through hell. Their cattle were rustled, and that's why they're now into banditry. And we've seen, calls for their rehabilitation. We've also seen the responses by some state actors saying, or governors more specifically, saying, no, we're not going to pay kidnappers ransom. We're not going to negotiate with kidnappers because this monies go back to buying them arms, sophisticated arms, and then they come back again to attack you double fold. And we've seen that over and over again. We've seen that even with what happened in the Northeast. Shortly after, the girls were released from the den of Boko Haram, the Chibok girls were released for 5 Boko Haram commanders. We saw what happened with insurgents in the Northeast as well. So are we in a catch-22 situation?
If you are torn between the devil and the deep blue sea, and you say, no, I'm not going to do the devil, are you then diving into the sea? If you are not picking the devil, you are not diving into the sea, then there's a problem. So if you say you are not going to pay ransom, that's fine. So what are you doing? What's the strategy? And then there's no strategy. That's the worrisome part. You don't want to pay ransom, but you are bolstering security in all the states where abductions have been reported. So it means that you are saying those who are in operation, they are not going to grow bigger in terms of ammunition, in terms of manpower, in terms of financial base. That's credible. If you are then not going to make them grow bigger, and there is a strategy to prevent them from further hurting the public. But that's not happening. So if you are not paying ransom,
you don't get a sense of that happening.
It's not about a sense. It's not happening. It's not happening. On Monday alone, the cable reported that there were 12 incidents of insecurity that led to loss of lives. The cable reported 12 in one day in different parts of the country. Abduction in Oyo, abduction in Niger, abduction in Katsina, in the president's states. So it's not about someone getting a sense. It's about the facts, the realities. Nigerian newspapers have become obituary announcement papers. Every day, almost every day, you're seeing announcements of people dying, people being abducted. Go and make your findings. 90 to 95% of the time, it's ransom. It's ransom. The money the state is refusing to pay, private citizens are paying it. So have you really achieved the purpose of not helping these kidnappers to buy more arms and expand? No. The money gets to them anyway.
Shall we blame private citizens for doing what they're doing?
You cannot. Until it has happened to you, you're not going to understand. As long as it's your loved one, you understand why it's bad to pay ransom, but you want to get your loved one out at first. Because at the end of the day, the government ought to protect you. Government has failed. You do it anyhow that you can. If the government doesn't want people to pay ransom, stop abductions from happening. As long as these things happen, you can't blame private citizens for how they act.
It would be unfair not to bring up some of the issues that you have also written on before now. I mean, I was just going through a few of your writings you had in 2017, and it would seem that the headlines will still be very relevant today. But when you look at the date, and the content, you might want to fit something else there. For instance, the president's return from London. The president just returned from London again on a medical trip. And you asked also, is Nigeria on the brink of another civil war? That was when I think IPOB was, proscribed, so to speak. Now we're still having, different issues. What will your take be on a question such as, is Nigeria on the brink of another civil war?
I'm very happy that some of the things I wrote in the past have been brought up, because sometimes when I write or when I tweet on social media, people say, oh, this is a PDP journalist, this is an opposition journalist. It's always, for me, it has always been about the country and the people, regardless of whether it's PDP that's in power or it's APC that's in power. In any case, you look at the rate of cross-carpeting. If anybody says the PDP journalist is wasting his time, because the PDP politician today is in APC and in a few weeks, Are we on the brink of a civil war? I won't say we are right there, but the auguries are not encouraging. They're not encouraging, and guess what? There is significant basis for apprehension by different groups. I'm a Yoruba man. I have no business favoring IPOB, but you prescribe IPOB, right? If, as a matter of fact, when the announcement was made in the defense headquarters called them militant terrorist organization. That's what they called IPOB back in 2017. They even rushed. They didn't even follow the procedure as listed in the Terrorism Prevention Act of 2011, amended in 20. They didn't even follow the procedure. But you have herdsmen. Way back in 2015, the Global Terrorism Index rated herdsmen the 4th deadliest terrorist group. Only Al-Shabaab, ISIS, and one other group were rated. And in Nigeria, you have someone going around saying, herdsmen are your brothers, show them love. And when that guy spoke on TV stations, no NBC find anyone. And then someone from IPOB says the government is lying about how someone was killed, and then you find the stations. So the government itself is sending the wrong signals to the public. And then you infuriate people the more.
What I found interesting, though, in all of this, in all of the complexities and the trauma of the stories that we have, delved into here, is the fact that you still say, this is a phase. It's like you still see light at the end of the tunnel. What gives you the hope that there is indeed light somewhere at the end of this?
As long as there is life, there is hope. What we make of this country will be determined by the things we do over the next 8 to 10 years. To be clear, we are in this for the long haul. I do not expect, for instance, things to be better in 2024. I'm sorry. Buhari filled many people, many of us, with optimism pre-2015. And when I say many of us, including me, because really, I thought that we would at least be better than where we were in 2011 and the likes. So at this point, it's so tough to be hopeful. But our problems are not rocket science. We know what should be done. We are not doing it. If the government is serious about empowering... Look, 2016, I did a story, 5 forgotten soldiers who got injured by fighting Boko Haram. There were some of them that lost their hearing aids because Boko Haram shot AAG, anti-aircraft gun. Boko Haram had it. And you had Nigerian soldiers just with their rifles. If the government is really serious, strengthens the army with ammunition, mobilizes them appropriately to the places where they should, and then fight this battle without recourse to whether some are herdsmen, some are from the southeast or south-south, we can make progress. Also, if we elect the right people, it's tough to see that person who is coming from APC or from PDP in 2023 and will do some fantastic job. That's tough for me. What is worrisome as well is that it is even tougher right now with the way things are structured to find someone outside these two parties, break the dominance of either party and then become president. But it is possible because we need to get the right people into key positions. But a president who sits comfortably in the villa or anywhere, you make all the noise that you can, you kill as many people as you can, you just send your spokesman to go and talk, and you don't think this is life we are talking about. This is beyond, I have service chiefs. I have to take charge. I have to show the people that I'm ready to work. We are several miles off where we need to be. But again, I do know that if we manage to get few people into key positions of power and they are ready to work, we can make progress as a country.
Fisayo, thank you for coming on Hard Copy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that's where we'll leave the program tonight. We sincerely continue to hope and pray that the students who have been held in different parts of the country by kidnappers and terrorists will eventually be returned and rescued safely back to their families. That there will be no more deaths, especially of students who are going to schools in our different centers for learning. That's where we'll leave the program tonight. Please do send your thoughts and feedback to the handles showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Good night.